Welcome to Medical Dilemmas with Dean, the podcast with stories about the highs and the lows of going through medical issues. I'm your host and storyteller, Dean Balsrak, and today we will be talking about my experiences with anxiety and how it has evolved throughout my medical situation. When I was in elementary school, I would always get worried about going to new places with my family, and I hated to travel. It stressed me out to not know what kinds of people I would see there, or what my surroundings would be like, or even how to get home without my parents' help. At the time, we did not know this, but over the years, my family and I have realized that this was an early sign of anxiety. Fortunately, my anxiety was initially only triggered by going to new places or on trips that I was not expecting, especially if they were during school. However, my anxiety began to be triggered by other things as I grew older, especially as I had more medical procedures and surgeries that involved anesthesia. Typically, when you think of building up a tolerance for something or getting used to something, you would think that doing or seeing the quote unquote something would get easier. However, having to go to the hospital and into the operating room countless times had the opposite effect on me. When I was younger, I actually never really felt anxious about going into the hospital. Even the anesthesia mask was not a big deal. Quick little pro tip for anyone who has to get anesthesia: never, never, ever, 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 never, ever get flavors on the mask. Never. It makes the already disgusting chemical gas anesthesia grossness just taste so much worse. And it ruins whatever flavor it is on the mask for you for a lifetime. It's a terrible, terrible idea. And I realized this when I asked for watermelon flavor when I was around 7 years old. Thankfully, I still love the taste of watermelon, but oh my gosh, it made the experience 1,000 times worse. It wasn't until I was about 10 or 11 when I really started to have a problem with the operating room, or OR for those of you who are doctors or, like myself, have spent way too much time in the hospital and know the lingo. Right before you go into the OR, you are in a recovery/prep area where they hook you up with an IV and do vitals and a bunch of other fun stuff. Then the doctors come to talk to you about the procedure, and then the anesthesiologists come to talk to you about the anesthesia. It was here that I would begin to get anxious from the idea of being wheeled into the OR on my stretcher. I would start to hyperventilate, and my thoughts would run wild. Every single possibility would enter my head all at once. It only caused my anxiety to ramp up even more. To this day, I have no idea why I started to get anxious about it. However, I have heard doctors say that it often actually gets more difficult to go into the OR and get the mask on for anesthesia as you get older and do it more often. This was surprising to me since, again, I always thought that doing something that you fear more often would make you more tolerant of it. However, this is not how it works at all for anxiety. Obviously, it is very difficult to work with someone who is having an anxiety attack while you're trying to get them prepped for and into the OR. To calm my nerves, the doctors would put a relaxation medication into my IV. This medication would make me feel loopy, and it felt like everything had a fuzzy tone to it. Noises started to sound echoey, my vision would get a weird blur, and it felt like my brain was about to check out for the night. The first couple of times I got this medication, I did not think much of it. In fact, I almost essentially depended on it to be able to get into the OR and not freak out over the anesthesia mask going onto my face. I used to be, and honestly still am, terrified of the anesthesia mask. I don't know why, but I just started to become petrified of the idea of the mask being locked onto my face and being forced to breathe an awful tasting gas that makes you go to sleep. Even when I'm not in the hospital, I still get uncomfortable whenever I see a mask like that, or even smell a smell that's even closely related to the smell of anesthesia. One time, I went with my family to see the musical Little Shop of Horrors. In the musical, there's a insane dentist who enjoys abusing his laughing gas, aka nitrous oxide for the chemists out there, to make himself feel loopy. During the musical, the dentist breaks into song in which he goes crazy, straps the mask to his face, and locks it with a key. Now, towards the end of the song, he tries to take it off because he has had more than enough laughing gas, but he cannot get it off. He begins to desperately claw at the straps around his head, screaming while he does it. Unfortunately for him, he cannot get the mask off of his face in time, and he eventually dies with the mask still locked tight. This freaked me the heck out, and it made me even visually uncomfortable, because I too have had to, and will have to again, get the mask strapped to my face like that for anesthesia. It opened up a whole new world of irrational thoughts for my brain, and it was really scary. It was a very unexpected moment that caused my anxiety to peak, even though I was nowhere near a hospital, and it really helped me realize how much of a problem my anxiety was. I still, however, did not think much of this anxiety until very recently when I had to go back to the hospital to go under anesthesia. I started to feel the same anxious nerves I had felt before in the prep/recovery area, and I required the relaxation medicine. However, this time the calming and blacking out effect it had on me scared me, since I couldn't remember anything that happened right after medication kicked in. I decided to talk to a counselor, and I started to work on weaning myself off of the relaxation medication so I could be confident about going in and even be okay with having the anesthesia mask on my face. To do this, the plan was to reduce the amount of medication I took by half every time I went into the hospital for a procedure until I felt confident enough to go in without any assistance. Fortunately, or I guess unfortunately for me, I had to go in every other week for medical procedures, which was perfect for the plan because I could start weaning it off more frequently. However, unfortunate for me because, of course, I have to go to a hospital every other week. The plan actually went pretty smoothly, and by the time the third procedure rolled around, I went in without any medication at all, and I felt totally fine. It was a huge step for me and a big personal accomplishment. For anyone listening who is struggling with any form of anxiety, it is okay to ask for help. Whether you ask a family member, loved one, a caring friend, or a counselor, it definitely helps relieve the weight you may feel about experiencing the anxiety, and it is the perfect first step to being able to manage it. Personally, I found that it's very helpful to talk to a counselor who understands my situation and can help me talk through how I'm feeling and explain it to me so that I too can understand how I'm feeling and find a way that I can manage it. For any other patients out there who feel any level of anxiety or just need someone to talk to, there are counselors at hospitals who specialize in talking to patients. And I actually didn't know this until I found the counselor I am talking to now, who helped me develop the plan to get over having to use the relaxation medication. And it was honestly very helpful. Also, it is extremely important to maintain your mental health and to talk to someone if you need to. When you are in the hospital especially, your mental health is just as important as your physical health, and it definitely should not be left neglected. Always know that you're never, ever alone. That is it for this episode of Medical Dilemmas with Dean. And if you'd like to hear more, then make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications to stay up to date for the next episode. I promise the next episode will be out in a shorter time frame than this one. All of the music for this podcast is made by my brother, Steve, and the podcast is edited by myself. And I'll see you all next time for another Medical Dilemma with Dean.